Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us around £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing around 14 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
that's a subject out the vehicle,
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units. They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers, and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, the full impact of a crash for cash plays out in front of passengers' eyes.
This was a fast road. It was just about to join the M40 motorway. The driver stood on his brakes to cause a crash.
Thames Valley Police target the UK's #1 insurance fraud. And a prisoner's attempt to stretch the truth results in a longer stretch inside.
He actually stated to his girlfriend that he was hoping to gain around £6,000 in compensation.
Crash for cash is the #1 insurance fraud in the UK. As its name suggests, criminals deliberately create crashes for huge insurance payouts targeting innocent drivers. It's often described as a victimless crime, and that the only people who pay are insurance companies. But not anymore.
Crash for cash, in its simplest form, is where you will have a driver of a car, and they are part of a criminal gang. They're determined to make a crash and for you to drive into the back of them because it's recognised generally through the insurance world that if you drive into the back of someone, it's your fault.
Scams like these are costing up to £400 million a year through fake claims. Inspector James Upton was the leading investigator of a horrific car crime. The first fake accident which had fatal consequences.
The worst is where innocent victims are targeted. That's only going to lead to one thing. That's someone being killed or very seriously injured.
In June 2011, 34-year-old Baljinder Gill was driving home along the motorway when she was involved in a crash for cash scam. The accident happened around 8:30 p.m. Two cars were working together, aiming to cause a crash. One car pulled in front of the other, hoping for a van behind to collide into one of their vehicles.
This was a fast road. It was just about to join the M40 motorway. It was a 3-lane stretch of road at 70 miles an hour. The driver stood on his brakes to cause a crash.
Baljinder was driving behind the targeted van.
Actually, the victim that they chose was Mr. Fallon in the green transit van, and was a sign-written transit van. It would have been clear to most people that it was a business-related van that probably had insurance. But Baljinder was immediately behind Mr. Fallon and was caught up in the plan.
She probably would have just thought everything's going to be fine. She was at the car, she was in a safe place. So when she leapt back in to grab a jacket because it was cold, that the second collision took place.
Baljinder had crashed into the back of the targeted green van. She managed to get out of her car, but it was so badly damaged from the first collision that she had to stay on the hard shoulder. Then events took a devastating turn.
Within a short period of time, another vehicle came along in the third lane, and unfortunately he was unable to stop in time and drove into Miss Gill and her car, and she died at the scene.
The devastating impact of the second collision can be seen in the reaction of passengers on a passing coach. This footage was so compelling, it was used in court.
My dad's come up to me and said, oh, the police were outside, coming up in the door to see what they want. come downstairs and I've opened the door and I've spoken to the two officers out there. And they've suggested that they come in and we all sit down and they can speak to us properly. I remember crying. It was just difficult.
We were just numbed. We have no idea what they said, what we hear. Up to about 6 or 7 in the morning, we were talking, crying, and just realised what they have said.
Luckily for me, the last thing I told my sister, I think it was the day before the accident, I spoke to her on the phone in the evening, probably about 7 o'clock. And I was just wishing her a happy birthday. And the last thing I said to her on the phone was, I love you.
Mr. Lee, who hit Baljinder and drove into the back of her car, was arrested at the scene. Mr. Lee was not a member of the gang, but was sentenced to a year in prison for causing Baljinder's death.
He was investigated, charged and found guilty of causing her death by careless driving at Reading Crown Court. But it should be recognised he was not part of that gang.
On the roadside, the members of the gang had been treated as innocent bystanders. It was only when the police started to investigate the accident further that they realised it was anything but an accident.
Bye.
At the scene, a passenger had given officers a false identity. It turned out the owners of 2 of the vehicles lived yards from each other and were in contact at the time of the crash.
We had seized their mobile phones at the point of arrest. Most of them denied any involvement in what had happened and certainly had said that they had no plan to create a crash or claim fraudulently for insurance purposes. What developed through the investigation into the mobile phone evidence was that they clearly were all in communication with each other before, during and after the collision.
By April 2014, the gang had been tried at Reading Crown Court. 4 members of the gang of 5 were sentenced for 9 years and above, and the 5th member was given 6.5 years.
It should really send a message out to anybody that's thinking about committing such frauds that it's taken very seriously and there's a high price to pay.
No sentence that any judge ever issued would ever be enough. It's never going to bring my sister back. There's no, in my opinion, there's no punishment that's suitable enough to give them after what they did.
Baljinder unnecessarily lost her life because of the unnecessary greed of this criminal gang. There's no place for this sort of driving on the UK's roads, and the police service will do everything that we can to stop it. And if it happens, investigate it. We want to make our roads safe, and we will do what we can and every investigative technique to identify these individuals and bring them to justice.
To think, instead of going out and getting a job and just working and doing what everybody else does, to commit crime and to get money that way, it's just horrible.
We're never going to get Baljinder's back. They probably get their life back at one point, but we're not going to get our life back.
We got no life because we lost our 2 children. We have breathing and walking, but we got no life.
Crash for cash is becoming a major policing issue. Currently, UK police forces are investigating 110 of these scams across the country. Reports claim that 1 in 7 personal injury claims are linked to deliberate crashes. These collisions are designed to milk insurance companies of up to £30,000 per crash. It's big money, and it's a serious danger to the public. Britain's police forces are determined to put the brakes on this type of crime, and Thames Valley Police is no exception.
Police, open the door now, last chance!
Detective Inspector Louise Roddy from 4th CID has a team of 25 officers dealing with crimes from murder to blackmail and fraud.
We work closely with the Insurance Fraud Bureau and the Crown Prosecution Service to make sure that we've got a watertight case to present at court.
Thames Valley Police have witnessed the impact these crimes can have on the public as they brought the criminal gang to justice who killed Baljinder Gill.
These accidents are taking place on busy roads and the offenders can't possibly know what the end result of their crime will be. So it really isn't a victimless crime at all.
With Crash for Cash on the rise, 4th CID aim to track down these gangs.
I do think the action that we've taken also sends out a really clear message that Thames Valley Police aren't prepared to accept these types of offences in our area.
And the police will use everything in their power to bring these criminals to justice.
We will seek to disrupt any offenders and we will target them if they continue to commit offences.
It's 7 a.m. Today, Thames Valley Police are getting ready to raid another suspected Crash for Cash ring.
So Operation is basically an operation that's focused on a series of frauds that have happened as a result of some induced or fake road traffic collisions. So the aim today is obviously to disrupt these offences, to stop them happening, to arrest the suspects and to prosecute them.
Police teams from CID, road policing and immigration have been working together, investigating a series of Crash for Cash crimes.
It's a police issue because of the scale of the offences. This is a series of crimes and it does involve criminals that work together, and we believe that they're an organised group of criminals. So if we can have the sergeants back in the office over there and we'll look to go out in the next 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you.
Sergeant Nigel Scarrett is preparing to head out with his team on today's raid at a company address, where it's believed that the suspected criminal gang planned the crashes from.
It's a first floor business premise. We're looking to arrest for suspicion of conspiracy to defraud and damage property and suspicion of dangerous driving. 3 subjects at the address, so we're not really sure numbers-wise how many's going to be there.
Nigel briefs the officers, directing them on how they will tackle the raid.
We'll try and park up short so you can go in first. Because of the time of day, we're not sure if anybody's going to be in or not. So likelihood is we're probably going to have to force it. So if you want to lead, follow Roger, all right, and then we'll come behind you in the van. Ready, sir? Let's do it. Quebec Sierra 50, test call.
Raids have their risks. The officers have to be ready for any eventuality.
It's a big crime, really. You know, a lot of fraud, worth a lot of money. They're making a lot of money from it. Yeah, they get quite upset and want to fight you. So that's why we always go in quite strong, really. Quebec Sierra 50 at the address.
Speed is essential, as the police don't want to run the risk of any suspect destroying evidence.
Breach! Got a second person in here.
Another one. How many got? 2 in here? 1 in there. Is that it, yeah?
There's a few startled people on the premises.
We've got a warrant, okay, to search this address, which is what we're going to do, okay, so we're going to be here for quite a long time. Conspiracy of fraud is what we're looking at.
It's essential the officers contain the situation quickly.
That's how it is, you know, it needs to be quick. We didn't know what were behind the doors.
But with the size of the premises and the amount of possessions, the team could be here for days searching through the property's contents.
It's a massive place here. I think there's going to be loads we've got to go through, so if when any officers come free, if they could come and help, that'd be appreciated.
Still to come, the raid continues, making some surprising findings.
So far, we've seized computers, we've found some drugs on the premises, and also shotgun cartridges as well.
For most people, ending up on the wrong side of the law means spending time inside. Some inmates see it as a time for rehabilitation. But for the most cunning criminal, being locked up doesn't necessarily stop them from attempting to break the law. Personal injury prison payouts have become a new source of income for some inmates, as criminals see it as an easy way to cash in from their cells. Prisoner Noel Jennings was serving 12 months for burglary, but during his stretch, he didn't exactly stay on the straight and narrow.
Mr. Jennings had been play fighting with his cellmate. During that, he'd somehow sustained a slight cut to the side of his head.
When Jennings saw a puddle on the floor, he came up with a harebrained idea.
He claimed that there was a damp area outside the showers and that he'd slipped and fallen forward and caught the side of his head on the door frame, which had caused a slight injury.
Simon Cartwright is the governor of HMP Manchester and oversees 1,300 inmates at the high security prison. So-called accidents have become a regular source of income for some of the prisoners.
Claims submitted vary from issues of assault, issues around injury, issues around fighting, issues around broken equipment. If an event happens, and if I can describe an event being an accident or an injury, they are always routinely investigated anyway, and we carry out robust investigations into those incidents.
But unfortunately for Jennings, during a routine phone call home, he did literally put his foot in it.
We initially got informed by security that a phone call had taken place between Mr. Jennings and his girlfriend.
I need you to get hold of an injury claim solicitor for me.
During the phone call, he told his girlfriend that he had injured himself play fighting with his cellmate.
And I've gone out David's cell, and the doors are low, and I've jumped up to go pretend to butt him, and I've smacked my head clean off it and nearly knocked myself clean out.
Ah, that's what really happened then.
But he'd also noticed there was some wet floor outside the showers and that he was going to claim that he slipped on the floor and banged his head.
Tell him that there was no wet floor signs out on the landing or nothing.
Now, that's not what you said 2 minutes ago to your girlfriend.
And the doors are low, and I've jumped up to go pretend to butt him, and I've smacked my head clean off it.
With this so-called knock on the head, Jennings had high hopes of cashing in.
He actually stated to his girlfriend that he was hoping to gain around £6,000 in compensation.
Everyone's been saying to me I get about £6,000 because it's a big scar on my face.
But the prison's litigation team were one step ahead.
When we heard from security that this phone call had taken place, obviously we gathered all the other relevant paperwork that was needed, and then we just sat and waited for this claim to come into the office.
It turned out that Jennings' bright idea hadn't really been given that much thought. Perhaps that bang to the head had stopped him thinking straight.
The attempt of fraud was not well thought out at all. It was completely amateur. He knew that phone calls would be routinely subject to monitoring, so there was every chance that the phone call could have been picked up by security, which fortunately it was in this case.
When Jennings knew the prison was onto him, he held his hands up.
Once he was interviewed by the police, he admitted that he was actually injured during the play fight and that it was an attempt to put a fraudulent claim in.
Jennings was charged with fraud and taken to the Crown Court. He was found guilty of perverting the course of justice and given an additional 15 months to be added onto the end of his current sentence.
It always feels good when you can disprove a litigation claim when it comes in. So it was a really good feeling around the office that we could actually do something and get this guy prosecuted.
Jennings, by chancing his arm for the sake of £6,000, got another year inside. It just goes to show crime doesn't pay.
The message that we can give to the public and to offenders is that if you pursue false claims against the prison service, you will be brought to justice.
Royal Mail delivers thousands of letters and parcels every day, from birthday cards to gifts. But sometimes that long-awaited package just doesn't arrive. Thankfully, Royal Mail offers insurance for such events. But, yep, you've guessed it, where there's insurance, there's fraud. In June 2011, when one particular package was claimed to have gone astray, two bungling fraudsters gave a rather wet interpretation of this type of fraud.
We received a call from one of our post office counter staff who told us that she'd taken a package in, a special delivery package, insured for £2,500, but later on that day she'd realised that there was water coming out of the package.
It seemed that the customer was about to post a package that wasn't all that it was wrapped up to be.
I don't think the lady in the post office was at all suspicious of the individual who brought the items in. What she was suspicious of was the fact there was water draining down her counter half an hour later.
The fraudsters thought they came up with a brilliant scheme to make £1 or £2. They decided to post several iPads to the value of £2,500 via special delivery. But instead of iPads, they packed it with ice cubes. Hold on, ice packs, not iPads. But what they thought was a watertight plan disappeared before their very eyes. The counter assistant opened up the package and found inside a bag of melting ice cubes.
We assumed this was probably going to be a compensation scam, so we warned our colleagues in customer services to let us know as soon as they'd had a compensation claim with regard to that parcel.
Of course, it wasn't long before Royal Mail received a claim for £2,500 for iPads being lost in transit.
To the best of our knowledge, the iPads never existed. When we checked the packaging, we found there was nothing inside it but a bag of melting ice cubes.
It turned out the swindlers weren't as clever as they thought and had got in a muddle over how the postal service works.
No real understanding of how the postal service or our claim service works because we'd never dispose of a parcel. If a parcel is damaged in some way, we will always try to reconstitute it and we'll deliver it to the addressee.
The two fraudsters were Nathan Mensch and Nigel Bennett. Obviously a lover of packaging as he turned up to court with a bag on his head. In July 2013, at Shrewsbury Crown Court, they were found guilty of fraud and received a 12-month community order and had to undertake 150 hours of unpaid work.
From time to time, we do see fraudulent claims. The point is we do have an investigation team, so we will never leave these uninvestigated. We will always try to get to the bottom of it.
Was this a first-class fraud or just plain stupid?
Ice cubes themselves are unusual. I've heard of it happening in other areas. We've never seen it before. It certainly wouldn't work because the ice has got to go somewhere. So it was a fairly poorly thought out scam, really.
If at first you don't succeed, try and try again. For the craftiest of fraudsters, when a claim fails, they don't give it a second thought of trying it on with a different insurer.
We received a call from the policyholder who reported accidental damage to his bedroom carpet caused by spillage of hot hair removal wax.
For this particular claimer, chancing his arm got him in a sticky mess.
Part of a routine inquiry would be to make database checks, and we very quickly discovered that the policyholder had a very similar claim only 4 months prior with another insurer. On checking the previous claim in a little bit more detail, we'd identified that that claim hadn't actually been paid, but also was accidental damage to the bedroom carpet caused by hot hair removal wax.
He denied all knowledge of the previous claim.
The policyholder insisted that there'd been no previous damage to the carpet and he'd been in that property for some time.
What the claimer hadn't counted on was that the insurance companies talked to each other and Allianz could easily get its hands on the details of his previous claim.
The similarities were beyond coincidence. One of our very experienced investigators listening to both calls using voice analysis techniques, and he was able to determine that both calls were indeed made by the same individual.
Again, the trickster denied all knowledge.
We gave him an opportunity to provide a further explanation, and he still insisted at that point, even confronted with the evidence we obtained, that it was all a misunderstanding. We went back to him and gave him an opportunity to confess. He didn't. Still insisted that it was all a misunderstanding.
Even though it was a small claim, it was referred to IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department. The specialised police unit takes a dim view on any form of fraud, and the claimant lost more than his claim.
The policyholder, we believe, was concerned about us referring to IFED because he was worried about his job. We found out he'd worked for another insurance company, and I think he was fearful of the consequences of that. It really wouldn't have gone down too well with them.
You're right. They didn't look too kindly on that, and he lost his job. And to top it all, he received a formal caution. But however small or large, no fraud will be tolerated.
The value of the claim submitted by the policyholder was only £245. But this really does go to show that insurance companies now take it seriously, have a zero tolerance towards fraud. This wasn't the most sophisticated attempt at fraud we've seen. He was easy to catch.
Quebec Sierra 50 at the address.
Thames Valley Police have been targeting crash for cash crime. Today, they're raiding an alleged gang's business premises.
Another one. We've got a warrant, okay, to search this address.
With the size of the premises, they've got their work cut out.
I think there's going to be loads we've got to go through. So if any officers come through, if they could come and help.
The officers need to be thorough in their search and can't leave any stone unturned.
We found it before we've been searching. There's one place that hasn't been searched, or one suitcase, or one briefcase, and you're just going to find that small bit of key evidence that could prove the case.
No matter how small the area. PC Roger Gilbert is a traffic investigator for Thames Valley Police. This is the culmination of months of hard work for Roger, who investigates traffic collisions, identifying possible links and patterns.
Every piece of paperwork here relates to different accidents at different times on different dates. There's probably a lot of unsuspecting members of the public out there who've been victims in these accidents who probably don't realise that they're induced collisions.
To build the strongest case possible, it's vital Roger gathers all the relevant paperwork to help bring the suspected offenders to justice.
We found various sets of car keys, another prepaid credit card. They basically go, we believe they go online and buy insurance, and they use the prepaid card, so they're harder to trace. But obviously, we found them in the drawers.
All potential evidence is bagged and tagged to help support the case.
So far, we've seized computers, paperwork, several mobile phones. We've found some drugs on the premise as well. And also, Clint's found some shotgun cartridges as well that we're not too sure if they're live or not. We're just keeping them safe. We're going to take them back to the police station and they'll be put into a safety cabinet, and the armed response vehicle, they'll just come to check that out. There's still a lot of stuff here. It's still possible we can find more paperwork, more mobile phones, maybe more firearms, you never know.
The drugs, cartridges and paperwork have been gathered as possible evidence and are being brought back to Thames Valley Police for further investigation. All in all, the officers think the raid has been successful.
I think without a doubt they've expected to get away with it. It sends a signal out to anybody else that's thinking about doing this sort of scam, committing these offences, that we will find them eventually.
On investigation, the police established that the men they found at the property were innocent and have nothing to do with the suspected criminal gang. But the items seized will now form a major part of the force's ongoing investigation. Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us around £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing around 14 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
subject out the vehicle,
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units. They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers, and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, a firefighter feels the burn as his car is torched in an insurance scam.
The fire service had been called out on what became apparent was a hoax call.
One insurance claimer calls in an incredible tale.
This rat apparently had dragged the phone out into the street to presumably make a phone call.
And IFED go on the hunt for a potential crash for cash gang.
Oi, open the door now.
Firefighters risk their lives on a daily basis in order to protect us. They bravely put other people's safety before their own. It's a high-risk, high-pressure and highly respected role. One such hero was highly decorated Anthony Murray, who worked for the Lancashire Fire Service.
Mr Murray has received two what we call Chief Fire Officers commendations. This is for action he's taken at incidents that are particularly important or dangerous.
In 2009, Anthony Murray saved the life of a 77-year-old woman when he pulled her from a burning building. But 3 years later, Mr Murray was the victim of the cruelest irony, when his car was torched while he was out on a 999 call.
The incident actually took place in the early hours of the morning of the 5th of October of 2012. A car was torched in the car park at Skelmersdale Fire Station, and at the time the fire service had been called out on what became apparent was a hoax call. Murray was on duty as a fire officer at the time of the fire happening.
The police started to investigate who was responsible for the fake call.
The police investigation quickly revealed that the hoax call had been made by a gentleman called Gareth Collier, who was connected to Anthony Murray by virtue of them both having been employed as doormen at various licensed premises in Wigan.
The police then checked Collier's phone and made a surprising discovery.
The police looked into the telephone contact between Murray and Collier, and it very quickly became apparent that this was a planned offence that they had spoken about by text message on a number of occasions in the weeks leading up to the fire. There were text messages to show that Mr Murray had told Mr Collier exactly what to say in the hoax call, in that he'd told him to say that there was a road traffic collision at an area which is the furthest area that Skelmersdale Fire Station cover, knowing that that would have sent both fire engines, one of which contained Mr Murray, to the furthest point of the area that fire station covers, thus making the coast clear for the fire to be set in the fire station car park.
With Murray now firmly in the frame, he came up with his own version of events.
He believed that someone had a grudge against him and Mr Collier as they were suspected to have assaulted someone during the course of their work as doormen.
The police then received a series of threatening letters, which suggested that someone else was responsible for the arson attack.
Letters were received by various people which purported to establish that somebody had a grudge against Mr Murray.
But there were clues in the letters that would spell the end for Murray.
Those letters were recovered by the police, and a number of them were assessed by a handwriting expert. That expert was able to compare the letters from this case with documents written previously by Mr Murray. It showed that those documents shared similar spelling mistakes and handwriting style.
The plot thickened when forensic evidence implicated Murray's mate, Gareth Collier.
Mr Collier's DNA was found on a cigarette lighter that was recovered next to the burnt vehicle, and he also went into the hospital the next day with quite a significant burn to his hand.
Gareth Collier had literally got his fingers burnt by the crime, but the stakes were high. After all, Murray's claim was worth tens of thousands of pounds.
Mr Murray purchased the vehicle in June 2011 for £47,400, and within the space of a year it had depreciated in value by half. He had taken out normal car insurance and also gap insurance, which is to make up the difference between the market value at that point and the original price of the vehicle. So in the immediate aftermath of the car having been burnt out, he claimed on both of those insurance policies.
Murray was in so much debt that he thought torching his car was the only way out. He offered Collier £1,000 for his part in the botched burnout.
Whilst there was clearly a degree of planning to this offence, I certainly wouldn't describe either of the men as criminal masterminds. The police did a very good job investigating this case, but the evidence was certainly there for them to find.
Along with his own car, the fire had burnt 2 other station vehicles to the tune of more than £20,000. Murray had wanted to get minted, but what he got was a court summons instead.
The result was that Mr Murray pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit arson, 2 counts of fraud, 1 in respect of each of the 2 insurance policies, and perverting the course of justice. He received a total sentence of 60 months imprisonment.
Murray's plans to get rich quick turned to ash.
Mr Murray received a lengthy custodial sentence, which, in my opinion, reflected the seriousness of the offence, the amount of money concerned, the fact that in the aftermath of the offence he made positive steps to try and deflect the police investigation away from him. In addition to that, I think the most serious aggravating feature to this offence is that Mr Murray used his knowledge gained as a firefighter to assist in the commission of this offence, and that will have been taken very seriously.
The twisted firestarter's ruse was finally snuffed out, and he was unceremoniously locked up. Worse still, he had soured the good name of the Lancashire Fire Service.
This could have actually damaged our reputation quite badly, but I think people are sensible enough to realise this was a rogue activity by an individual. As an experienced firefighter, he fully knows the potential effects of fire. We are grateful that in this particular instance nobody was actually physically harmed. In Lancashire and elsewhere in the country, hoax calls and arson attempts have resulted in fatalities and serious injury. I'm appalled at the actions of Anthony Murray. I think as a fire service we feel betrayed by his actions.
Still to come, criminals who claim, how insurance scammers work from behind bars.
One of the witnesses had actually seen Kirbishley fall over quite dramatically in a very controlled manner.
And IFED call in for some backup.
Yeah, we're going to need method of entry because there's no way we can get through here.
Where would we be without our mobile phone? Today's smartphones aren't just a way of making a quick call. They're an online, emailing, music playing, texting, diary planning device. And that's just the basic models. So imagine how upset you are when you lose it. Thankfully, there are people like Andy Morris at Assurance Solutions on hand to insure us against such eventualities. And this keeps Andy pretty busy.
We have 11 million customers, so we're sort of processing about 3 or 4 claims a minute. So if you think about the opportunity for fraudsters to try it on, it's quite significant. Nothing really amazes me about the creativity of the fraudsters.
But there was one claim in particular that had a pretty long tale to tell.
We had one customer who telephoned the call centre to register a loss of their very expensive mobile phone.
I believe you're calling up with regards to a lost Samsung Galaxy 8 in black. Yes. Okay.
At this point in the story, we enter Fantasyland. What the caller alleges next would have made Beatrix Potter proud.
The customer claimed that they'd gone to bed and had put the phone on charge.
Well, what we've got a rolling infestation of rats. Okay. And basically they've eaten through quite a lot of stuff. And the phone is basically gone. They'll probably dragged it down, probably one of those.
Am I the only one who can smell a rat here? No, didn't think so.
Our agents and our fraud team were obviously triggered at that point and sort of proceeded to ask more questions to the customer.
A member of Andy's security and investigation team called back to sniff out the truth.
The claim's been passed up to our department for further investigations to be carried out. Okay, and for me to be able to complete those investigations, I need to go into the claim in a bit more detail with you, make sure I've got all the correct information, and I also have a few questions in regards to the claim.
Why?
Okay, so...
I've been infested with rodents.
The consumer actually becomes quite angry. Why are we asking questions? Why can't a rat run off with the phone? And that we're a silly organisation actually making it difficult for them to pursue their claim.
Basically, from what I can gather, I had it on charge. We've had an infestation of rats, and obviously they've eaten through the skirting board, right? It will have dragged, you could have dragged the phone outside.
I find that very hard to believe.
The customer continued to stick to their story, and this rat apparently had dragged the phone out into the street, presumably play games on the phone or make a phone call.
Why do you find it hard to believe?
Because I find it very hard to believe that a rat has taken the phone from your desk.
They're very good at what they do.
They're very good at what they do?
Yes. It's no one going to believe me or what?
Rats may be clever creatures, but Andy's team were not going to be trapped.
We looked at the data records, and to our amazing surprise, the telephone was being used the next day.
Did anybody else have access to the handset?
No.
The reason I'm asking...
Why?
The usage of the handset that I'm looking at in front of me shows that that handset was used on the day that you called us.
Fortunately, the caller had a perfectly rational explanation.
The way the rat is obviously seeing the entry point of getting out is into the street.
So your phone has been on charge on your desk. A rat has come and dragged your phone through your skirting board. It's then taken the phone outside and somebody's picked it up to use it.
Well, it could do.
Each phone has a unique identification code, and that's called in the industry the IMEI number. What that allows us to do is to effectively track when and where calls are made on that phone.
Using data analysis and interview techniques, Andy's team were able to catch this rat.
Our agents are trained using police interview technique, which is an approved process to prove beyond reasonable doubt that the phone was being used and this individual was probably making up a ratty tale.
The insurance company had given the customer plenty of opportunity to tell the truth. But when backed into a corner, he withdrew his claim and was blacklisted.
Whilst this is an amusing story, there is a really dark side to this. It costs the industry billions of pounds a year with fraud. And like they say, you're never more than 2 or 3 feet away from a rat. You're never more than 2 or 3 calls away from a potential fraudster.
In January 2012, the City of London Police joined the fight against insurance fraud by forming an elite squad known as IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
I would say to anyone who's considering committing insurance fraud that now this is no longer a crime without consequence that it may have been in the past. There is a dedicated 40-strong unit known as IFED that work 24/7 hunting down insurance fraudsters.
They've made over 550 arrests and have saved millions of pounds in fraudulent insurance claims, money which ultimately goes back in our pockets. From now on, fraudsters need to watch their backs.
So if you're thinking about it, I suggest think again. There's every chance you'll get an IFED detective come knocking on your front door.
It's early morning, and IFED are on a mission to crack a suspected crash for cash gang. DS Marcus Allen and DC Patrick Einsman lead one team, while DC Kate Sibley heads the other.
The people we are after today is sort of higher up the chain, if you like. The crash for cashes, they're employing people to do the crash for cashes, but they're the ones that are the people we're looking for today are the ones that are organising it. So this is one of a number of addresses that is being visited this morning by officers from IFED.
On the other side of town, DS Marcus Allen's team are on their way to a different location.
We'll go to the address, first of all we'll knock at the door to try and get in. If we can't get in, we've got uniformed colleagues who can force entry. Right, shall we go?
Marcus and his team park around the corner so as not to draw any attention. An upstairs window is open, so someone may be home. But so far, there's no sign of life. Marcus and his team are eager to gain entry so they can begin their investigations. Tired of waiting, Marcus instructs his police colleagues to get the rapid entry equipment.
Yeah, go on, go.
But suddenly, someone appears at the upstairs window.
Now! Open the door now!
Finally, the suspect opens the door.
Good morning. Hello, I'm Marcus Allen. I'm from the City of London Police, the Insurance Fraud Investigation Department. OK, we've got a warrant to search this address, so come inside. OK, is there somewhere where we can sit down and talk? Thank you.
My name is Detective Constable Patrick Heinsman. I'm arresting you on suspicion of conspiracy to defraud and money laundering. You don't have to say anything.
IFED wastes no time, and it's not long before the suspect has read his rights. Marcus and the team are now able to conduct their search of the house.
Where do you keep your paperwork, your main paperwork? Here? OK, well, we'll start there. Also, computers. Do you have computers in the house? That is your computer. OK.
Meanwhile, DC Kate Sibley arrives at her destination. Kate is accompanied by the rapid entry team, a group of police officers equipped for knocking down doors. The occupants are thought to be involved in the alleged crash for cash scam.
Can you open the door, please? Good morning. City of London Police. You are?
Kate soon establishes that the men she is on the hunt for are not in the house, and they have sublet it to an innocent, if rather bemused, tenant.
Have you got any identification on you? Have you got a passport or anything, or driving licence? You do. Could I see it, please? Right, don't come through and I'll explain why we're here.
As the flat is owned by the suspects, Kate still needs to search the premises.
We have a warrant to search these premises, OK? So I am going to have a look round.
After a brief search that reveals nothing relevant, Kate moves on to a second address that may be associated with the suspects.
Okay. Thank you. Unfortunately, the two suspects we were looking for don't live there anymore, despite all the checks showing that they did. So we're now moving on to one of the other addresses that's currently being searched to give them assistance. And hopefully we'll catch up with the two suspects we're after later on today.
Meanwhile, back at Marcus's raid, there has been a development.
Open the doors, I'm going to break the door. No, open the door now. Wait, open the door now.
Police discover two men in an outbuilding.
Is there anybody else in these premises?
And now they must establish who they are, what their legal status is, and whether they're suspects and need to be arrested. Back in the main house, Marcus is thumbing through potential evidence.
We've got into the address, we've identified our suspect, he's been arrested. We're now searching the address for evidence in relation to the offences. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of correspondence to do with motor vehicles. So what we need to do now is establish what's relevant and what's not. We've got our uniformed colleagues for backup, so I'm quite happy with how it's gone so far.
Coming up, Kate's team gets serious, and Patrick discovers an unusual filing system containing potential evidence.
He's quickly thrown away all the DVLA unregistered for all the vehicles.
Is that all in the bin?
Yeah.
Some fraudulent insurance claims come from the strangest of places.
Manchester Prison is a Victorian prison. It was built in 1868 and opened as a high security prison in 1994, and we currently look after in excess of 1,300 men.
Incredibly though, some criminals are trying to claim from the state by creating fake injuries, which inmates like Andrew Kirbishley hope will pay out while they're still behind bars.
Mr. Kirbishley was serving time for a violent assault. He claimed that during the course of an industrial cleaning lesson that he was using the buffer and he tripped over the damaged flooring.
Accidents happen, and this was nothing out of the ordinary. But crafty Kirbishley was hell-bent on making a meal of it.
Kirbishley claimed that he'd severely injured his knee to the point where he wasn't able to walk.
While Kirbishley claimed to be injured, he still had his wits about him and had the psychic ability to predict his accident. Kirbishley had spotted the damaged floor days before and told the prison course leader about the imminent danger.
He actually informed us that Mr. Kirbishley had mentioned the damaged flooring before the course took place. He'd smiled and said somebody's going to have an accident on this during the course of the day.
And curiously enough, his prediction came true.
He was then seen by the City College instructor to pretend to fall over the damaged flooring and lower himself to the ground in a controlled manner. He then looked up at the City College instructor and smirked.
Kirbishley's prediction, and pretty poor acting, was where he really slipped up, as Chris Hadfield from Greater Manchester Police soon discovered.
One of the witnesses had actually seen Kirbishley fall over quite dramatically in a very controlled manner. And by that, he said that Kirbishley had fallen over with his arms outstretched, falling to the floor with his knee bent. That's not the actions of somebody who had tripped over.
Undeterred by witness accounts, Kirbishley appointed a solicitor who wrote to the prison authorities claiming their client had suffered significant pain and discomfort at the left knee and was suffering with a constant dull ache with bouts of intermittent sharp shooting and throbbing pains to the back of the knee.
The solicitor's letter had said that he wasn't able to attend the gym, so we asked the wing staff to monitor Mr. Kirbishley's movements.
It didn't take long to find out that crafty Kirbishley was continuing his deception.
The wing staff were able to monitor Mr. Kirbishley and relayed back to us that he was attending the gym on a regular basis and he was in fact lifting quite heavy weights. The amount of weight that he was lifting, he would be unable to do this with that knee injury.
The team had now gathered enough evidence to expose the fake claim and go after the crooked claimer. This resulted in Kirbishley's sentence being extended by an additional month. But that wasn't all.
Mr. Kirbishley was due to have a parole board review hearing where he was hoping to have his category lowered, which would mean that he could move to a lower category jail.
He thought it would be his get-out-of-jail-free card, but Kirbishley really tripped up when he thought he could get the taxpayer to pay for his lies.
The fact that Mr. Kirbishley was charged with another offence during his sentence meant that his progression to another establishment was halted at that point.
Kirbishley remains a caged bird in Manchester's high-security prison. And if he or any other inmate fancies making a quick buck from false claims, the governor has some words of warning.
The message is that this sort of action by offenders will not be tolerated, and we'll use all measures, working with Greater Manchester Police, our specialists, litigation teams, to stamp down on it. And the message is that it won't be tolerated and people will be brought to justice.
Two IFED teams are on the hunt for a suspected crash for cash group.
We're taking out the top players that we believe are behind the organisation of the crashes that we are investigating at the moment.
I'm arresting you on suspicion of...
DS Marcus Allen's team have already arrested one of the main suspects.
Open the doors, I'm going to pry the door.
They also discovered two men unexpectedly living in the suspect's outbuilding.
Wait, open the door now.
So you live here? Yeah, OK. Well, what we're doing, we've got a warrant to search. Search it. OK. Have you got ID?
Marcus takes photographs of their identification and emails their identities to Police HQ to check their legitimacy.
We're happy with the identity of the two men in the outbuilding, and we've checked their immigration status, and we're satisfied with them at the moment.
Elsewhere, DS Kate Sibley has arrived at a second location as part of the investigation.
The second address we've come to, we've arrested one suspect who's just been taken off to custody. This address is currently being searched, and we're now going to go off to the yard, which the rear of it is rented to the suspects, which is where all the vehicles are kept and taken after the accidents.
But gaining access is going to be tough. So Kate calls in the Rapid Entry Boys.
Yeah, we're going to need method of entry because there's no way we can get through here. Well, we just arrived at the yard. The main gates are locked, padlock. We need to go to the rear of that, which again is locked. There's no sign of life, so we've got to get assistance from our support group, who will be able to gain access using bolt croppers.
The Rapid Entry Unit don't mess about, and a padlock and chain are no match for them. They're in. Kate and her team need to explore further.
We were expecting to find vehicles in relation to the crashes that we're investigating. Unfortunately, that's not the case. We found a new business that's obviously taken over the site in the form of skip hire. So unfortunately, we've drawn a bit of a blank here, but it had to be done and we had to cover all bases.
Meanwhile, Marcus and Patrick make a potentially important discovery in the case. While searching an upstairs room, Patrick finds something very interesting. It's a bin containing a number of insurance documents. Paperwork that is often helpful in cases like these.
He's quickly thrown away all the DVLA unregistered scrap letters for all the vehicles.
Is that all in the bin?
Yeah.
Yeah. What I'll do, I'll just seize the contents of the bin, I think.
The suspect finally emerges from the house and is led to the waiting police van.
The time's now 9:25. We've finished at the address. We've searched it thoroughly. We've arrested the suspect. We're now going to the custody at the police station to interview him.
With paperwork seized and the suspect arrested, it's been a good day for the IFED team. The investigation is still ongoing. Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us around £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing around 14 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
Subject out the vehicle,
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units. They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers, and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, an opportunistic fraudster sees the London riots as a chance to cash in.
The rioters weren't anywhere near his premises, and Mr. Patel even managed to get the timing slightly wrong as well.
One lady brushes up on her Italian from the comfort of her armchair.
We strongly believe that the medical report was written utilising an online translation system.
And Thames Valley Police break in on another suspected crash for cash ring.
Right, go. Last chance. Please, open the door now, last chance!
Back in the summer of 2011, the UK was hit with some of the worst riots in a generation. It's thought as many as 1,500 people were involved in 5 days of public unrest, causing millions of pounds worth of damage to buildings, businesses and homes. More than 5,000 crimes were committed in that time, and the insurance industry saw thousands of claims, costing around £200 million.
The riots caused misery to hundreds and hundreds of businesses and individuals. Shop fronts were damaged, businesses couldn't trade, there was looting. As a result of the riots, Allianz Insurance dealt with 350 claims and we'd paid over £11 million in claim settlements.
The burning shops of South London became the iconic images of the riots. Local business owner Abid Patel contacted Allianz after his premises were targeted by the rioters.
Mr. Patel reported that in August 2011, his laundrette, shopfront and washing machines inside had been damaged by rioters during the London riots.
Outnumbered by an angry mob, Mr. Patel had to witness firsthand the destruction caused to his premises.
On the day in question, Mr. Patel decided to work late, and whilst working in laundrettes, he alleges that London rioters came, damaged the shop front and got inside. Being afraid, he retreated to the back of the premises, and subsequently the rioters ran amok within the laundrette and damaged 11 washing machines.
After such a terrifying ordeal, Allianz was keen to get the claim settled, but the company didn't just reach for its checkbook. Despite the huge volume of claims, each one was still investigated, and the insurer discovered some dirty laundry.
A number of concerns were raised. Mr. Patel had already previously submitted a claim for damage for washing machines in the laundrette only 6 months prior, which was never paid because Mr. Patel wasn't able at that time to produce documentation. This time round, when he was in the back of the premises and the rioters had left, he didn't actually call the police, and that concerned us.
And there were other mistakes in the claim.
There were some unusual aspects to the claim. The documentation that we received from Mr. Patel didn't add up. A lot of handwritten invoices, and when we tried to contact some of the companies, we couldn't do so.
The insurers decided to send out an investigator to the claimant to delve further.
While the investigator was there, he attempted to call one of the alleged companies that provided an invoice, and when he did so, the actual landline in Mr. Patel's laundrette rang out at the back of the premises. At the time, the investigator thought that highly unusual, so he did try that again, and he disconnected, rang again, and the landline rang out. At that point, Mr. Patel withdrew the claim.
Realising Mr. Patel's fraud, the insurer thought it was time to hang him out to dry.
We made a referral to IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department. Subsequently, IFED raided Mr. Patel's home address and seized his computer. And on that computer, we found lots of evidence suggesting that Mr. Patel had actually created and falsified the invoices and estimates.
By trying to get one over on the insurers, it seemed the claimant had got himself in a spin.
I think the biggest mistake he'd made was that he'd got his location and timing all wrong. When we contacted the police, they were able to confirm to us that the rioters they weren't anywhere near his premises, and Mr. Patel even managed to get the timing slightly wrong as well.
The claim would have cost the insurance company £16,000, but the fraudster's antics didn't stop there.
As well as the claims submitted to Allianz, Mr. Patel had made claims to other insurers that they were near to settlement. That was for another £16,000. And when the police raided and took his computer, they found evidence that Mr. Patel was already in the process of making even more claims to more insurers.
Mr. Patel was found guilty of 7 counts of fraud by misrepresentation. He was given a 16-month suspended sentence.
Mr. Patel's attempt at putting in a claim as a result of the London riots was cynical, but it was quite amateurish as well. What we found particularly irritating was the time spent dealing with Mr. Patel's fraudulent claim could have been spent dealing with the genuine claims and getting businesses back on their feet.
Still to come, a dog breeder is barking up the wrong tree with her paperwork.
The claim form and the receipt from the breeder were both in the same handwriting.
And a couple of claimants try it on with a Whiplash claim.
One of the guys has told the expert that it's been an effect on his dancing.
During the summer holiday peak season, up to 20 million Brits travel abroad. From Bognor to Budapest, many holidaymakers want to play it safe. covering lost luggage to cancelled flights, even the odd medical emergency. So many take out holiday insurance to give that extra bit of protection.
Rome is a very popular holiday destination, particularly for people wanting to go for long weekend breaks, to visit the Colosseum, for example.
It was while sampling a bit of the Dolce Vita in Rome that one claimant contracted a nasty complaint.
We received a medical claim from a customer who had allegedly sought treatment in Rome for a urinary tract infection. It's extremely unfortunate if you become unwell overseas, and ultimately that's what your travel insurance policy is there for, is to cover you for genuine medical costs.
As you'd expect, all the paperwork to support the claim came from Italy, in Italian, or so it would seem.
Due to the international nature of our business, we do employ multilingual staff, and on this occasion one of our claims advisors was in fact Italian and realised that the medical report had not been written by an Italian.
Okay, yeah, we can get that investigation completed.
The insurer didn't believe a word of it. It was time to call the experts in.
Our Special Investigations Unit became involved after the claims advisor referred it through to us. We then made numerous inquiries regarding the documentation that we had received.
This wasn't even a flying visit. It turned out the claimant hadn't even left their own doorstep.
As far as we're concerned, the customer didn't even travel to Rome because the airline had confirmed the booking invoice was false. And the medical establishment also confirmed the documentation provided for the medical situation was in fact false as well.
The claimer clearly needed to brush up on their language skills.
We strongly believe that the medical report was written utilising an online translation system, because it definitely wasn't written by an Italian. I don't speak Italian. I find English hard sometimes.
Luckily, the insurers had someone in their office who did.
Our Italian speaker was the main reason that the matter was referred through to the Special Investigations Unit, because she noted the irregularities in the medical report.
Claim rejected, it was arrivederci for the claimant. And it's no surprise that the Special Investigations team haven't heard from the claimant in either English or Italian.
This just shows really that what lengths claimants will go to make a fraudulent travel insurance claim by actually falsifying the booking invoice and falsifying the medical documentation as well.
Crash for cash is becoming a major policing issue. Currently, UK police forces are investigating 110 of these scams across the country. Reports claim that 1 in 7 personal injury claims are linked to deliberate crashes. These collisions are designed to milk insurance companies of up to £30,000 per crash. It's big money, and it's a serious danger to the public. Britain's police forces are determined to put the brakes on this type of crime, and Thames Valley Police is no exception.
Police, open the door now, last chance!
Detective Inspector Louise Roddy from Force CID has a team of 25 officers dealing with crimes from murder to blackmail and fraud.
We work closely with the Insurance Fraud Bureau and the Crown Prosecution Service to make sure that we've got a watertight case to present at court.
That's our man, secure him!
But it's not just costing the insurers thousands. These criminals are putting innocent lives at risk, and people are getting seriously hurt.
These accidents are taking place on busy roads, and the offenders can't possibly know what the end result of their crime will be. So it really isn't a victimless crime at all.
With Crash for Cash on the rise, Force CID aim to track down these gangs.
I do think the action that we've taken also sends out a really clear message that Thames Valley Police aren't prepared to accept these types of offences in our area.
And the police will use everything in their power to bring these criminals to justice.
We will seek to disrupt any offenders, and we will target them if they continue to commit offences.
It's 7 a.m. Thames Valley Police are getting ready to raid a suspected Crash for Cash ring. It's thought the group has been prevalent in the area for the last few years, forcing collisions and faking injuries. Today will see the culmination of months of hard work.
Good morning. From my part, I'd just like to thank you all again for coming along today and helping us out with this operation.
DC Sandra Heather is a member of Force CID and one of the leading officers for today's raid.
The ultimate aim is to confirm, identify and arrest suspects in relation to the offences in order to secure and preserve evidence, recover property, including documented communication and computer equipment.
Police teams from CID, road policing and immigration have been working together investigating a series of crash for cash crimes.
It's a police issue because of the scale of the offences. This is a series of crimes and it does involve criminals that work together, and we believe that they're an organised group of criminals.
But equally, we want to send out a really clear message from Thames Valley Police that these offences will be dealt with robustly, that offenders will be arrested, and at any opportunity we'll prosecute them. Thank you.
DC Heather is in convoy with a team of officers heading to raid the address of one of the suspected criminals involved with the crash for cash fraud. These officers are on the front line when it comes to the raid.
We'll see what we get when the premises. Hopefully they'll open the door, but we've got the equipment necessary if we need to force entry.
Method of entry officers are trained to knock the door down if the suspects don't cooperate.
This method of entry officers, first thing we're going to be looking to do really is kind of just step out of the way, because if we've got the equipment in hand, then really we need to secure that and just make sure that everyone else gains access and entry into the building.
Suited and booted to be on the front line. Once the officers have gained access, they then have to secure the property.
But once we've got inside, it's basically just covering all of the areas, making sure that empty rooms are classed as clear. Gather everybody into one secure area so that we've got the most effective way to search around the premises, and then let's begin the search.
Speed is essential, and the police can't waste a second.
Just pull in after this red car, mate. Right, go.
Police officers, open up!
The suspected criminal could be destroying evidence or making a run for it, so they need to get in quickly.
Police, open the door! There's someone at the window. Open up!
There's someone inside, but the officers are running out of time and patience.
Right, last chance. Police, open the door now, last chance!
Oh dear.
Right, let's do it. Go. Clear. Secure. That's our man, secure him, that's our man.
The suspected criminal is apprehended.
Just confirm his name and identity.
What's your name?
Yeah, that's the man.
Identified, it's time to put the handcuffs on.
You're under arrest on suspicion of fraud and false representation.
And we just hold him here till the arresting officers escort him out.
Arrested, the suspected fraudster is escorted to the patrol car.
Officers here have entered the premise and arrested a suspect from the address following the investigation in a crash for cash scams. The suspect and others are believed to have gone on to make personal injury claims, to which thousands of pounds have been paid out.
As he's taken to the station for questioning, the hard work in searching the house now begins. Later, the officers come across something suspicious.
That barrel can't get into it.
A suitcase that's kept under lock and key. They say that a man's best friend is his dog. But having a pet can be an expensive business, and veterinary bills can run into the thousands. For peace of mind, many have insurance to cover the costs. But one crafty claimer who thought she'd try and get one over on her insurer was barking up the wrong tree.
A claim came in for a very poorly mastiff with pelvic limb ataxia. Pelvic limb ataxia is a condition whereby you might find one or more of the legs or limbs paralysed, or difficulty in moving. There might be incontinence. So a distressing condition for the mastiff and a really distressing condition for the new owners. His name was Basil, and with the condition that it had, obviously we wanted to settle the claim as quickly as possible.
Even though the owner had only had the dog for a few weeks, the insurer didn't think there was anything unusual about the claim. That is, until further inspection.
One of the things that made us suspicious of the claim was when we investigated the claim form and the receipt from the breeder were both in the same handwriting.
The insurer contacted the claimer to see if they could explain.
When we probed the new owner and the breeder said the receipt had been written by her husband, and it was a bit of a fudge, which set alarm bells ringing. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Not convinced, the insurer approached the veterinary practices used by the breeder and the owner of the pet.
And the breeder's veterinary practice showed that Basil had actually been to see that vet 3-4 days before that Basil had sold.
This showed that the dog had a pre-existing condition before it was sold.
So the breeder knew there was a problem with the puppy. The breeder said, when we spoke to them, that the puppy had left completely healthily, but obviously it hadn't. It had seen the vet beforehand.
This wasn't the only blunder the claimant had made.
The owner claimed that she hadn't met the breeder until she went to collect the puppy. The breeder said that she was friends with the owner. On the receipt and the claim form, they had very similar handwriting. The owner said that her husband had written the claim form out, and so that there was it wasn't quite her handwriting, but it's identical to the breeder's. So it's very clear that there was something amiss with the claim.
The dog owner and the dog breeder's stories just didn't add up.
When challenged, the breeder became very evasive. She also met a lot of our questions with silence, which is indicative that there's a problem.
Caught out, the breeder held her paws up.
Eventually, she admitted that the condition was pre-existing, and when pushed further, she withdrew the claim and said, "I'll meet the cost of the veterinary fees myself."
The insurer knew it was a shaggy dog story.
This was an example of a breeder who got a puppy that she couldn't sell because it was poorly, and she'd asked a friend to pretend to buy the puppy, insure the puppy, and then claim for the veterinary fees that the breeder couldn't claim for because the puppy was already ill.
The breeder had made a real howler and is well and truly in the doghouse. Over 4.5 billion bus journeys are made every year in Britain, and almost 2/3 of travel on public transport is made on the Great British Bus. So it isn't very surprising that bus companies see their fair share of accidents.
On the 20th of November 2010, at around about 4:30 in the afternoon, a van has overtaken one of our buses on the driver's side, and the wing mirror of the van has just come into contact with the side of the bus. It's a minor glance, really, no real signs of any movement or need for the bus driver to swerve or brake in any way.
It was just before rush hour, and there were a few passengers on the bus.
On the upper deck, there are two chaps sat at the back of the bus. They're generally sitting there. One's on his phone, one's chatting away rather animatedly to his friend. Annoyingly, he's got his feet on the seat, but they both seem to be very relaxed at that stage.
Thankfully, whenever there's an accident, Lee has an army of spies to tell him what really happened, in the form of onboard cameras.
When you take into consideration that we're running both single-deck and double-decker buses in our services, you can expect there to be between 12 and 16 cameras on each of those buses, covering the inside and the outside of the bus.
From looking at the CCTV, the accident really appeared to be a very minor one.
This was certainly a very low-energy impact. There's certainly no jolt that you can see from the footage, and I wouldn't have expected anyone to be injured in this situation.
Hold on, let's have another look.
You do see some general swaying, but it's nothing out of the ordinary that you or I would experience in travelling on a bus on a daily basis.
With no one hurt and very little damage, there didn't seem to be anything to worry about.
The minor nature of the impact is actually borne out by the fact that there was only around about £132 worth of damage caused to the bus. The damage to the van was so negligible that the chap didn't even bother claiming for the damage.
However, some passengers saw it as an opportunity to take First Group for a ride.
We received 2 injury claims from each of the guys on the bus. They've both got soft tissue injuries.
The 2 passengers persisted with their claim, but were in for a bumpy ride.
All told, these claims would be worth in the region of around about £3,300 each, plus costs. And a medical expert has said they're going to take around about 6 to 12 months for both of those injuries to heal. One of the guys has told the expert that he has been unable to lift anything heavy for about 6 weeks, and in addition to that, it's been an effect on his dancing.
The claimants were obviously hoping to do a quick step to the bank.
Naturally, when the claims handler is presented with these claims, the first thing he's going to question once he's seen the CCTV footage is how on earth could these two guys have even been injured?
The camera never lies, and there was no footage to support their claim.
You would expect to see a sudden jerking movement to support the claims that they were making, probably the neck going forwards and backwards, but there's no movement at all in this situation. So it's difficult to see how they were actually injured.
Looking back though, there did seem to be some sudden movements.
There was a very fast movement when the chap jumped off the seat to look out the window and see what happened. The second quickest movement was probably both of them getting onto their mobile phones immediately. I'm not a betting man, but if I was, I would probably say that at the end of each of those phones was a no-win, no-fee solicitor. But that's just my opinion.
Not believing a word of it, First Group turned the claim down.
Were they to come back in the future, there are two things I would probably say is, first one, not to make a claim for excessive jolting causing you injury on a bus where the company you're claiming against is filming you. And secondly, keep your feet off the bus seats, please.
Right, go.
Thames Valley Police are in the middle of a raid on the home of a suspected criminal in a major crash for cash gang.
Please, open the door now, last chance!
With no response, the team had no option but to force entry.
You're under arrest on suspicion of fraud and false representation.
Arrested, the suspected criminal has been taken to the station. The police must now concentrate on finding evidence, and a systematic search begins.
We take a room each, 2 further rooms at the back. Are we happy with the loft? Have we been up there yet?
Nowhere escapes the officer's attention.
See if there's bank stuff, phones, computers.
The police must go through the house with a fine-toothed comb. Any bit of evidence could crack the case, so they can't afford to leave any potentially suspicious documents behind.
Are you guys all right up here?
Yeah, he's got car insurance here.
Yeah, literally. You know, I appreciate there's a lot of paperwork here, but at first glance, if it's anything remotely to do with a car insurance, other vehicle documents, rather than sort of reading through it as such as you are now, just put it in a bundle.
Okay.
Any banking details, any driving documents, including the laptop as well.
Paperwork is key to this investigation, but searching the contents of the house can be a long process.
We've got a load of receipts related to pet receipts over a couple of years, an insurance policy document, and a few applications for private hire vehicles.
Digging out any potential evidence is just the tip of the iceberg.
The electronic equipment, so the iPads and the laptops, they will have to go off to our high-tech crime department, and it can take anything from 6 to 12 months for that to be processed. In terms of all these documentary material, depending on how many officers we have dedicated to it, it could take a number of days.
Everything is bagged and tagged to take back to the station later. The officers are a tenacious bunch, and suspicions are raised when they find a locked suitcase.
Right, we're going to need to get into this. I'll go downstairs and find
got the bolt croppers in the van.
Right.
Nothing will stop the police from searching for evidence.
Okay, which one's locked?
And their persistence usually pays off.
2 wedges of cash. So it's at least a couple of thousand in each pile.
DC Heather is immediately informed of the cash find.
2 quantities of cash, which obviously we'll have away.
Yes, yes, please.
And a number of passports. Do you want those away or just get them checked?
I think get them checked initially.
The money is now being confiscated under the Proceeds of Crime Act, and the emphasis is now on the suspected fraudster to show it hasn't been acquired under criminal activity.
These were search warrants, just details why we can enter the premises, under what offences, and for the items and property that we'd be looking to search. When we finish here, the occupier is entitled to a copy, and we just have to detail the property that we're lawfully seizing.
Thames Valley Police now have to prove that these documents link the suspected gang to the crash for cash crimes.
The evidence that we've gathered and the early stage of our investigation is quite strong. It's good, credible evidence, and then we will progress it from there and see where it goes. I'm really, really pleased with today's result.
Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us around £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing around 14 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
That's the subject out the vehicle.
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units. They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, a bus company unleashes their secret weapon to slam the brakes on one false claim.
You can expect there to be anything between 12 and 16 cameras, so remember to smile, you're on camera.
A holidaymaker's claim fails to take off.
Customers clearly seeing his travel insurance policy as an easy target to make money by deception.
And the IFED team hunt a suspected car insurance fraudster.
We've got a warrant from the court to enter and search the address for fraud.
Britain has been described as the whiplash capital of Europe. With almost 1,500 claims a day, it costs the industry nearly £2 billion a year. And fraudsters see this opportunity as a potential goldmine.
A typical whiplash claim pays around £2,500 in the UK.
Christian Worsfold is an expert in these types of injuries.
So whiplash injury describes the mechanism of the injury, so the movement of the head and neck, usually in a low-speed motor vehicle accident. The problem with whiplash injury is that all the symptoms are subjective in nature, so x-rays, scanning won't show any damage to the neck.
Claimants are acutely aware of this loophole.
I have patients regularly coming back to me who I'm treating saying that they weren't in the examination very long, it wasn't very in-depth. So it's very easy for a person to pretend that they have the injury.
So it's not surprising that for public transport companies, fake whiplash claims can be a real pain in the neck. One man who has plenty of experience dealing with whiplash claims is Lee Ingram.
On the 28th of February 2013, one of our buses was making a left-hand turn. They've misjudged the turning circle and they've squashed up against some railings at the side of the road.
It must have caused more damage to the railings than the bus. Keep your eye on the bottom right of the picture.
We were rather surprised sometime later to receive a claim from one of the passengers on the bus, bearing in mind that this was a rather innocuous sort of squeezing accident rather than a full-on impact.
As always, the ever-present whiplash claim was put forward.
We do see these sorts of claims presented quite often. People will claim they've received a whiplash injury from the most innocuous of incidents.
And this claimant didn't stop there.
We were a bit surprised later on, a further claim was submitted with the medical report for physio fees of £500 and a rather surprising care and assistance claim of over £2,000. These claims consist of 3 hours for general housework, 2 hours help with ironing, 6 hours help with laundry.
It's added up to 29 hours a week.
Care claims do tend to generally be inflated slightly, but 6 hours for laundry excluded ironing seems a little bit excessive. I think my nan could have done it quicker with a hand crank washing machine and a mangle.
Luckily for Lee, he has a powerful weapon in the fight against such bogus claims.
When you take into consideration the single-deck and double-decker buses that we're regularly running in service, you can expect there to be anything between 12 and 16 cameras covering the inside and the outside of the bus. So yeah, it's pretty good coverage. When she's gone to see her medical expert, she's actually told him that she's been thrown violently forwards and backwards. So when we watch the CCTV, this is what we're expecting to see.
As the bus knocks into the railings, the claimant is sitting in the bottom right-hand corner of the picture.
She doesn't move a muscle, she sits stock still throughout the whole thing.
As you can see, she doesn't even move.
I'm not a medical expert, but I'm pretty sure you cannot get a whiplash injury from sitting still. First group's response after reviewing the footage was to reject the claim in its entirety on the grounds that there was no movement or inconvenience to anyone on this bus really, other than some general swaying. Certainly nothing to suggest that there would be a whiplash injury or any sort of injury to any of the passengers. You would have thought that this would be the end of this particular claim once we'd sent the CCTV footage off to the solicitors, but they weren't prepared to give up without a fight, and they did want their day in court, so this case went to trial. Trial cases are inherently risky. A moderate-sized claim like this could attract costs of up to around £20,000.
Travel companies like First Group self-insure, and so court fees like this are not taken lightly.
We were extremely shocked to get a bill of costs in on this particular claim of £40,000. So that was a little bit of a worry, but we thought we've got good evidence, so there was no way we weren't going to run this one to trial, and we did.
So she was off to court, possibly by bus.
At the trial, the judges actually heard evidence from, amongst others, the claimant's mother, the claimant and her sister. The claimant's sister has said that she cannot lift her arms above her head. Her mother has said that she spends a lot of time in bed because her medication has made her drowsy. The judge just didn't believe that those levels of assistance were required, so he found issue with that. The biggest issue is probably the CCTV. We show the footage back and the judge sees her just sitting there with no movement at all. What else is he going to say? Yeah, we're pleased with the result, and in the end the judge dismissed the entire claim.
Still to come, a claim that really pushes the envelope.
Everybody in my investigation team is a sort of chess player. Getting to the bottom of the case and solving it is what they're there to do.
And one policyholder makes a dog's dinner of their claim.
Something very extraordinary happened for us. We had a tip-off that the breeder and the owner were colluding to defraud us.
Holidays are normally a time to relax. But for a select few, these dreams can turn into a nightmare. A foreign country is the last place you want to suffer an injury or lose your personal belongings. Your holiday can't get off to a flying start if you've been separated from your suitcase. Unfortunately, this seemed to be the case for one traveller to the African country Cameroon.
We received a baggage claim for €7,000 for a bag that was lost by the airline.
That's around £5,570. The claimant in this story was particularly unlucky, as the items lost included some expensive designer clothing.
A lot of our customers claim for designer clothes such as Armani, Prada, Louis Vuitton. They don't seem to have clothing from George, Asda, F&F at Tesco's or any of the high street brands.
There's nothing wrong with taking pride in your appearance and splashing out on the odd luxury. But I hope this customer kept his receipts, because these labels are pricey.
We became suspicious about the claim due to the level of designer clothing that was being claimed and the lack of proof of purchase for the items.
But surely people wouldn't deliberately exaggerate the cost of belongings that have gone walkabout.
It's extremely convenient, and they never have any receipts or proof of ownership for the designer gear.
The insurance company could smell a rat. Simon and his team took on the case.
They only provided 2 suspect-looking receipts to support €7,000 worth of clothing.
Maybe the shopkeeper could help clear up the confusion.
Well, we made some internet searches and the shops couldn't be located. We also attempted to contact the telephone number on one of the receipts, and it was a dead line.
That could have been the end of the story. With all the genuine claims keeping Simon's team busy, would they have the time and resources to unravel events that took place in a whole other country?
Fraudsters may assume that as the incident occurs overseas that we cannot investigate their claim, when in fact it is just as easy to investigate an overseas claim as it is in the UK.
To Seeger, the concept of an international operation is not a foreign one. Their highly skilled sleuths around the globe regularly help Simon's team spy out the truth.
We proceeded to appoint one of our overseas network of investigators in Cameroon to do some on-the-ground inquiries. The on-the-ground investigator was unable to locate both of the shops in the areas shown on the receipts. Also went as far as checking the local phone directory, and neither shops could be located. They also checked with locals as well, and none of the local people in the area had ever heard of the shops. At that point, we're thinking this is a fraudulent claim. Shops do not exist.
But this international mystery became even murkier when the team looked into the customer's previous payout.
But whilst looking at the baggage claim, our Special Investigations Unit also noted that the customer had made a medical claim which looked suspicious. The costs were particularly high and disproportionate to the treatment he would have received.
Yes, $1,200 does seem a lot for the treatment of everyday symptoms such as fever, stomach pains, colic and a headache.
Our on-the-ground investigator spoke with the medical director at the clinic, which was a genuine clinic, and he found that the documentation we had been provided with for the medical claim didn't in fact originate from the clinic, and it was false.
They had him by the globes. It was clear he had grossly exaggerated his claim and was playing a brazen game of catch me if you can.
Well, the customer's clearly seeing his travel insurance policy as an easy target to make money by deception.
But he was about to have his wings clipped.
We firmly rejected the claim and wrote to the customer invoking the fraud condition. For the medical claim, which we had in fact paid, he was ordered to pay the money back, and he agreed to repay us back in instalments.
But the repercussions didn't end there. Any future applications for insurance would be grounded.
After we formally rejected the claim, we also issued an industry-wide fraud alert to warn other insurers of the subject.
This meant he will be blacklisted. Another claimant had been sent packing. A message to anyone who thinks that travel insurance is their ticket to a new wardrobe. In January 2012, the City of London Police joined the fight against insurance fraud by forming an elite squad known as IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
The message I'd give to people that are considering embarking on insurance fraud is just don't do it. My team, day by day, are getting more sophisticated in tracking down the people that want to try out this type of crime. So really, if you want to go into insurance fraud, I would say don't do it.
They've made over 550 arrests and have saved millions of pounds in fraudulent insurance claims, money which ultimately goes back in our pockets. From now on, fraudsters need to watch their backs.
My team work tirelessly 24/7, so we know exactly what types of scams you're going to embark on, and we will come after you.
Police, don't move, stay where you are!
DI Dominic Parkin and DC Jamie Kirk had an early start this morning. It's 6:45 and they're on their way to raid the house of a suspected crash for cash criminal.
As always, when we go out on these searches and warrants, we do as many checks and inquiries as we can. We never know all the risks that are involved, and so when we knock on that door, there is obviously an element of the unknown.
Today's raid is the result of months of hard work and preparation.
So this investigation has been going on for a number of months. The insurance industry, they spotted that the circumstances were suspicious, and they've referred the case to us to investigate further.
This type of fraud can be big money for insurance fraudsters. But IFED hope to intercept the alleged group before they receive any payouts.
This fraud is commonly runs into the tens of thousands of pounds. No money's being paid out as yet by the insurance company, but the attempt to obtain the money is into the tens of thousands of pounds.
Today, Dom and the team are treading carefully. The element of surprise is an essential tool in the fight against insurance fraud. They got up at the crack of dawn for this wake-up call and hope their suspect is in.
You just go back there and just watch that upstairs window. Hi there, I'm a police officer. There's my warrant card. We've got a warrant from the court to enter and search the address for fraud. Okay, so he's gone out to work this morning already? Okay. If you just go in the lounge, I'll tell you what's happening.
Despite their early morning arrival, their suspect has already left for work.
Got a warrant here from the court which has authorised us to search the address for conspiracy to defraud and money laundering, and it's all to do with fake insurance claims on motor accidents. Okay, so that's why we're here, and I need you to ring and get to come back here, all right, because he needs to be spoken to. In terms of the man we were after, he wasn't at home. We missed him by 45 minutes. He'd left for work at 6 o'clock, and we turned up there at 7:15. That happens sometimes. Should have come earlier. We should have got up at 4 o'clock, not 5 o'clock.
The suspect is called. Even though he's not there, IFED can still go ahead with their search of the property.
There's so much police here, and they're talking to you about insurance fraud and stuff, and they want to search the property and everything. Oh, here. Did you want to speak to them quickly? I'm afraid I'm going to die soon.
Okay. Hi, my name's Dominic Parkin. I'm a police officer from the City of London Police. We're here at your address with a search warrant issued by the Magistrates Court to search the address for items in connection with insurance fraud. So what time will be back? Okay, and we'll give you a call later and we'll arrange a time for you to come to the station. Okay, all right. Cheers now, bye. Yeah.
The suspect will be questioned later. But for now, Dom and his team must painstakingly search the house for any evidence relating to the alleged fraud. This means waking up everyone in the property.
So we've got to search the house, and I'll let you explain to the kids and wake them in a way that...
Oh, really? God. You have to go in all the rooms?
Potentially. But, you know, for us to search the house, it could take some time. So it's not like we're going to have a quick...
Oh, I see.
You know, a quick look around and we'll be gone before they wake up.
To save time, IFED always asks for help in locating any potential evidence.
If you could let us know where he does keep his stuff, it might be quicker.
Well, I've got a briefcase.
The woman is being cooperative and has said all paperwork is kept in a briefcase. The team start here, but will also need to check the other rooms. IFED leave no cupboard unopened, as evidence can be stored in the strangest of places.
Okay, we're not going to take this. We're not going to take these banking documents, but we're just going to make a note of the account numbers. So our financial investigator just has a look at the accounts to see what's if there's any link with the investigation.
Even old computers and laptops are seized, as they could contain vital evidence in the case. Everything is bagged up and labelled, ready to be taken away and examined by IFED's investigators. With the search complete, the items seized are taken back to the station for further analysis. But the most important thing now for IFED is that their suspect shows up at the station.
Great, so we'll be in contact with him today and we'll make an arrangement for him to come and see us so he can just answer the questions that we've got.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're good.
The team have uncovered lots of useful documentation, but are still waiting to speak to their suspect.
So we've finished the search of our address. We've seized a number of items, those being some insurance documents and also some financial documents. We've also taken the computer tower from the address, so we'll be analysing that at a later date. In terms of the man we were after, he wasn't at home, but we've made contact with him by phone and he's agreed to come into the station later this afternoon for an interview. So all in all, a good day's work.
As the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Thanks to a boom in online auction sites, you can easily buy anything from antiques to flat-screen TVs without leaving the house. But it can be nerve-wracking to hand over your hard-earned cash, trusting that a faceless seller will honour your bid and send you your item. Luckily, online sites and distributors like Royal Mail have insurance and refund policies to put bidders and sellers' minds at ease. Even if you don't pay for recorded delivery, Royal Mail will still refund you up to £20 for a lost package. But there are those who abuse this goodwill, just like our next claimant, who was such a prevalent fraudster that she ended up in court.
In this case, we'd had a customer who'd made several claims for items that she'd posted. These were all sorts of items, all sorts of small consumer durables, jewellery and things like that, mainly the kind of things that you can buy from auction sites.
One parcel going missing is annoying, but several losing their way is a real headache.
We were already suspicious about this particular customer because of the number of claims that she'd been making.
It was starting to add up to more than just bad luck.
We eventually concluded that she'd had so many items that she'd sent go missing, we thought this was questionable, and we were instructed to pay one final large claim by the Postal Review Panel, and at that point we thought we'd hear no more from this customer.
For Royal Mail, the sorting of parcels and packages never stops. Surely it will be easy for a fraudster to get lost in such a big system.
Well, not long after we'd ceased to hear from this customer, we realised that we were seeing a lot of claims coming through from other organisations and from other customers, all of whom had posted items to her and all of which were claimed not to have been received.
The claimant had switched from selling items to buying them. This time she was sending complaints to various sellers that her purchases had not turned up. But Tony suspected she had received the packages and lied to get a refund.
At that point we decided we would undertake an investigation. And this is a very particular type of investigation. It involves looking at somebody's personal mail, so it requires a very high level of authorisation.
They needed to bring on board one of their trusted colleagues, someone with local knowledge, close to the target and well positioned to do the legwork.
We asked the delivery office manager to record details of all the parcels and packets that were delivered to this lady. What we thought we might see, if our customer was in fact dishonest, was that she was denying receipt of parcels and packets that we knew we'd delivered to her.
Over a 4-month period, her scam was revealed.
We found that we had 33 items that were claimed to have been sent to this address that we knew had been delivered and that were allegedly not received.
Royal Mail have never lost 33 parcels to the same address.
There is no customer that I have ever come across who is unlucky enough to lose 33 items of mail like that. It's got to be a fraud or a scam of some sort. We just don't lose that level of mail.
For months, she was trying to claim from both her sellers and Royal Mail. Tony referred the case to the police.
Eventually, this lady was prosecuted by the Crown Prosecution Service on behalf of Royal Mail and this other company. She received a 3-month prison sentence, suspended for 18 months.
Tony and his team had stamped out this nonsense.
It's incredibly satisfying to get to the bottom of a case like this. Everybody in my investigation team is a sort of chess player. They're playing a game of strategy against the criminals. They enjoy doing it, and getting to the bottom of the case and solving it is what they're there to do.
For Brits, man's best friend has always been his trusty pet dog. And it doesn't get more British than the English bulldog. Long associated with Winston Churchill, the bulldog is a symbol of strength and honour. One person who knows all about bulldogs and other furry friends is pet insurer Simon Wheeler from Argreer Pet Insurance.
I've been in the pet insurance industry for a long time, and there are always some strange and amusing and bizarre claims. There's the owner who has its car keys removed from the dog's tummy. There's a cat that has a yard of tinsel removed from its bottom.
What a catastrophe. Simon recently came across one shaggy dog story that really gave him pause for thought.
We received a claim for a missing bulldog puppy. The puppy was called Lola, and her owners had insured her with us and were claiming £2,000 for the purchase price because she'd gone missing.
Although extremely pricey, they're not the most athletic breed. They'd rather sleep on your lap than play catch in the yard. In fact, their loyal nature means they tend to stay pretty close to home.
With a young puppy, it was unlikely that it would have strayed far, so we suspected it had been stolen.
It's not uncommon for expensive breeds to get snatched. So on the surface, this case looks straightforward. However, there was a twist in this tale.
Something very extraordinary happened for us. We had a tip-off, an anonymous tip-off, that the breeder and the owner were colluding to defraud us of the £2,000 purchase price.
But further still, Simon's informant believed the claimant was crying wolf.
The person who was suggesting that there was fraud occurring went on to say that the policyholder had no interest in dogs, didn't like dogs, wouldn't tolerate a dog in the house.
Simon Wheeler, ace insurer, pet detective, delved into the case.
Because of the tip-off, you never know whether there's some animosity, whether there's something else in the background and somebody is stirring up trouble, or whether actually there is some fraud occurring. We had to investigate it. So we approached the breeder and we approached the policyholder and just started the normal set of investigations.
Once Simon took on the case, the leads started raining like cats and dogs.
When we're investigating a claim of this type, we'll look at some of the supporting documentation, so the claim form that's submitted and the receipt that the new owner has been given for the puppy. In this instance, although the policyholder and the breeder live 200 miles apart, the handwriting for both was very, very similar. We also check that whether the breeder and the new owner knew each other. Both were adamant that they'd never met before the purchase of the dog.
Today's insurers regularly sniff around social media networks as a tool to catch people bragging about their furry friends or lack thereof.
When we investigated on Facebook was that they were father and daughter. So the breeder was the daughter, her and her partner had sold the puppy to the father, and very evidently they were part of the same family.
Simon got on the dog and bone to the policyholder and the breeder, whose days were about to get rough.
When we questioned the policyholder and the breeder, there are some inconsistencies between their stories. Certainly the policyholder was very, very edgy, very evasive, and we felt they were withholding information. We questioned the breeder as well, and again, they weren't relaxed. They were edgy, and their stories just didn't tie up.
The breeder had put their foot in it.
At this stage, we just suspected that the daughter had a puppy and it had been sold, and then they thought they'd have another £2,000 from the insurance company by having a member of the family insure that puppy and then claim it had gone missing, probably sharing the proceeds.
The insurance company, now armed with enough evidence, refused the claim. But that wasn't the end for this dodgy claimant, who turned out to be someone who should have known better.
One of the breeders was a serving policeman. We referred the claim to IFED, who in turn referred it to the local police authority, and it became an internal police investigation.
The claimer was in the doghouse. He had bitten off more than he could chew.
The policeman was invited to a disciplinary hearing for gross misconduct. Before the hearing, the policeman resigned.
They had finally collared him, and Simon had saved the day.
Hey, but that's all in a day's work for a pet insurer.
Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us around £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing around 14 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
that's the subject out the vehicle,
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units. They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, whilst abroad, a businessman claimed to have kicked the bucket to the tune of £1.1 million.
He told her that he died the previous day and he'd already been cremated.
One arsonist gets her fingers burnt when claiming for a fire at her business premises.
There were fuel canisters left uncapped, and the fire service believed that the flammable liquid was used to accelerate the spread of the fire.
And Thames Valley Police are out in force, but wait for no man.
Right, you've got 2 seconds to open it, fella. I don't care if you're naked or not, open this door.
For peace of mind, many have life insurance to help out family and loved ones when they're gone. These type of policies can run into hundreds of thousands to compensate bereaved families. However, some cunning fraudsters like to try and cash in early. A particular fraudster was on a supposed business trip in the hustle and bustle of Delhi, where he contracted a fatal fever. Mr. Kumar had a life insurance policy for £1.1 million. When the insurers were informed of his death, due to the large amount and the circumstances, they didn't hesitate in handing it over to their investigators.
Mrs. Kumar informed life insurance companies that her husband had died whilst visiting India in November 2011. She stated that her husband contacted her on the 19th of November, said he wasn't well and was going to go and visit a hospital to get himself checked out.
But that was the last Mrs. Kumar had heard from her husband.
And on November the 26th, she's contacted by her husband's friend, a business associate out there, who told her that he died the previous day and he'd already been cremated. She said she was obviously very concerned and upset at this news and asked why she'd not been informed, and he said everything happened so quickly.
To discover he had died was devastating news for Mrs. Kumar. A few days later, she flew out to India to stay with her husband's business partner.
When she arrived in India, apparently she suffered a stomach bug and was bedridden for the duration of the stay. He allegedly gathered the documents for her from the hospital, from the cemetery. She was apparently so ill that she couldn't even make a phone call to the hospital and various people to find out what happened to her husband.
Mrs. Kumar stayed in India for a week before heading home.
I asked her when she returned to the UK if she'd made any further inquiries in respect of her husband's death, and she said she hadn't. She'd been too busy dealing with the insurance companies.
When she returned home, the investigators interviewed Mrs. Kumar, and her story just didn't add up.
There were a number of issues that caused us concern. She initially stated that he'd gone out there with a view to starting up a business to import rugs. Later on in the interview, she explained that he'd actually gone to India with a view to importing computers. When this was challenged, she said she was confused and she'd made a mistake, and it was definitely to import computers.
Not convinced, the investigator took things into his own hands and caught a flight to Delhi to make some inquiries. First stop was a cemetery.
I spoke to 2 cemetery managers in that location. They told me the cemetery didn't exist. Furthermore, they looked at the documents and said the documents were false, and they'd never heard of that particular cemetery.
But the Kumar's deceit didn't stop there.
I then went to the hospital where he'd allegedly died. They searched the records. There was no record of him being admitted. And furthermore, I spoke to the doctor in charge of the medical records and showed him the letter that had been produced by Mrs. Kumar saying that her husband had died. He said that is not the format. He said in 14 years working there in charge of the records, he'd never seen a document like that.
Before leaving Delhi, the investigators' final stop was to visit the family Mr. Kumar had stayed with on his visit.
Spoke to his daughter initially, showed her a picture of Mr. Kumar. She said she'd never seen him before. Spoke to her father on the phone. He said he'd never seen or heard of Mr. Kumar.
By now, the investigator had no doubt that this was indeed a fraudulent claim. When he returned to the UK, the insurer handed the case to IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department, where Tom Hill was the leading investigator into the case.
Mr. Kumar allegedly died of a brain fever. The crematorium didn't exist, and the witnesses that were listed as having attended the burial either didn't attend it or couldn't be located.
Their initial inquiries threw up some significant evidence. Bizarrely, there were some really dubious money transactions.
As part of the investigation, we found that Mrs. Kumar had transferred £1,500 to India to Mr. Kumar after the date that he'd allegedly died. This was fantastic evidence for us. The obvious conclusion was that Mr. Kumar was still alive, and he was either still in India or he travelled back to the UK and was living somewhere in the UK.
It wasn't long before IFED were knocking at the family's door.
We found some damning evidence in the form of a letter written by Mr. Kumar to one of his children, in which he appeared to be pouring out his heart as to why the fraud was done and the reasons for it.
Mrs. Kumar was arrested on the spot. However, the news didn't end there.
On the day Mrs. Kumar was arrested, I received information from certain intelligence checks we do that Mr. Kumar had flown back to the UK using a fake name and was somewhere in the Hertfordshire or London area.
This was a breakthrough for IFED. The case was starting to unravel. And further investigation showed there was a motive behind their fraud.
There's a history of failed business ventures and debt that unfortunately had overtaken the family. And I believe this was a way of starting afresh, possibly in India, but more likely, we believe, back in the UK under an assumed identity.
The Kumars were clearly rumbled, and within a few days, Mr. Kumar handed himself in. But unbelievably, they denied faking his death.
They were both interviewed on a number of occasions in which they denied the offence, and they were subsequently charged with 6 counts of fraud. They were in serious financial difficulties, and this was a way out.
In June 2014, the Kumars were sentenced at Southwark Crown Court. Mr. Kumar received 2.5 years in prison, and Mrs. Kumar received a 5-month suspended prison sentence. Which goes to show, he may have had one foot in the grave, but he didn't exactly meet his maker. Still to come, one car owner tries it on with the local bus company.
She's now alleging that she was in the car and she has sustained injuries to her lower back and is now suffering from headaches.
And a businesswoman gets caught playing with fire.
People's motives are complicated and they're tied in with their own personal and business lives, and we don't know what's going on.
Crash for cash is becoming a major policing issue. Currently, UK police forces are investigating 110 of these scams across the country. Reports claim that 1 in 7 personal injury claims are linked to deliberate crashes. These crashes are designed to milk insurance companies of up to £30,000 per crash. It's big money, and it's a serious danger to the public. Britain's police forces are determined to put the brakes on this type of crime, and Thames Valley Police is no exception.
Police, open the door now, last chance!
Detective Inspector Louise Roddy from Force CID has a team of 25 officers dealing with crimes from murder to blackmail and fraud.
We work closely with the Insurance Fraud Bureau and the Crown Prosecution Service to make sure that we've got a watertight case to present at court.
For a second person in here!
But it's not just costing the insurers thousands. These criminals are putting innocent lives at risk. and people are getting seriously hurt.
These accidents are taking place on busy roads and the offenders can't possibly know what the end result of their crime will be. So it really isn't a victimless crime at all.
With crash for cash on the rise, Force CID aim to track down these gangs.
I do think the action that we've taken also sends out a really clear message that Thames Valley Police aren't prepared to accept these types of offences in our area.
And the police will use everything in their power to bring these criminals to justice.
We will seek to disrupt any offenders and we will target them if they continue to commit offences.
Today, the police are getting ready to raid the home of a suspected criminal who is thought to play a key role in another crash for cash gang.
Our main suspect at the moment, if he's there, he needs to be arrested.
Sergeant Matthew Foskett is leading the team. They've got warrants to search the premises and hopefully find their man.
Knock politely, see if he comes to the door. There's intelligence that this may be a multi-op premise.
With a multi-occupancy property, it sounds like they might have their work cut out.
If it is multi-occupancy, then there may well be several people there that are completely unassociated with this whole scam. So therefore, we need to respect the people that are present.
Briefed on today's op, Sergeant Foskett and his team don't waste any time in making their way to the location.
I understand that we might be looking at people that are using a range of different identifications to try and avoid detection. In addition to that, we're looking for any information that would relate to collisions that they've had, any paperwork that they've received from insurance companies that they've been filling out to claim for this.
The officers leave nothing to chance and cover all exits. They don't want to give the suspected criminal any opportunity to abscond.
Got a light on upstairs.
There are more than 5 flats in this one building. It's crucial that they move quickly and take hold of the premises.
Hello, police! Hello, police! Can you come to your doors?
Open your door, please!
Police, come to the door! Top floor's clear!
On raids like these, the police use all means necessary. The officers don't muck about. A second kick, and they're in.
Police! Come to the door! Okay.
Can we have the bar up here, please?
But downstairs, one of the residents is hesitant in opening the door for the police.
Fella, if you don't open the door, I'm going to be kicking it in. No, now. What are you doing in there?
Please, can you open the door?
Pardon? Oh, shower. Right, you've got 2 seconds to open it, fella. I don't care if you're naked or not, open this door. Hello, mate.
Thank you.
What's your name?
Top floor's clear, that room's clear, the lady's got in that one. I've smashed that one in.
Within minutes, the officers have managed to search the property for their key suspects.
We just need to check you out to certain individuals we're looking for today. So once this officer's happy that you're not one of those individuals, we'll take you downstairs and we'll explain to you what's going to go on. But it's just let her, we are going to search every single room and that includes this one. Our chap isn't here. The gentleman that's in the bedroom that you've just come into, he used to share that same room with our man, but he doesn't know where he is now. He can't remember when he moved out. So what I suggest we do is start at the top, just search systematically all the rooms, and we're going to have to, looks like, try the other address that I'll get. Morning, how are you?
While the residents are questioned for possible leads, the officers start a systematic search of the premises.
There's 2 occupants in there. At the moment, we don't believe that they're anything to do with the situation, but they have been detained for the moment while we continue to do the search.
Still to come, It turns out there was more to the man in the shower than meets the eye.
You are under arrest on suspicion of conspiracy to defraud, suspicion of conspiracy to destroy and damage property, and suspicion of dangerous driving.
And the officers race to a second address in their search for the suspected criminal.
It's the police. Could you let us in, please?
In Great Britain, there are nearly 200,000 fires a year. The majority are accidental, but a staggering 1 in 8 are started deliberately. For the most basic of fraudsters, they think they'll just set a light and they'll get a big check. But not when fire forensics play a part. Hawkins are a firm of forensic scientists which carry out fire investigations for the insurance industry.
Our task for insurance companies is to establish what happened in any given incident. A certain number of fires that we investigate are started deliberately. An accidental fire will essentially progress through various fairly well-known stages following certain physical laws. If you find that it's deviating from that in one of a number of ways, then obviously you begin to suspect human involvement.
Using every aspect of science, they can determine the cause of most fires.
If we bring equipment back from the scene of a fire, we can examine it, take it apart in controlled conditions.
However, the reason behind why arsonists start a fire is not always straightforward.
One of the primary motives for committing arson is financial, and it could be for any number of reasons. And in fact, what we try very hard not to do is to second-guess people's motives, because people's motives are complicated and they're tied in with their own personal and business lives, and we don't know what's going on.
One such arson case landed on the desk of Allianz Insurance. But as this fraudster found out, if you play with fire, you'll get burned.
In June 2013, Amanda Bryant reported that there'd been a fire and had damaged the warehouse at the business premises. She'd claimed there was extensive damage to the warehouse, also a roof had collapsed and there was damage to a wall. In addition, there was a lot of damage to a number of items within the warehouse. At this point, it looked like the value of the claim was going to be in the region of £150,000.
But Amanda's claim about the fire wasn't all it was cracked up to be.
Early indications from the police and the fire service suggested that the fire had been set deliberately. There were fuel canisters left uncapped, and the fire service believed that the flammable liquid was used to accelerate the spread of the fire.
Allianz started to take the usual steps in investigating this claim.
We looked into the financial background of Amanda Bryant. There was suggestion that she was in financial difficulty at that time. Whilst it's not evidence of a fraud or wrongdoing, it often gives a motive for a fraudulent claim.
There were inconsistencies in Amanda's story, and for the insurer, there's no smoke without fire.
We had suspicions, but we couldn't find any evidence. Some of the inconsistencies were around setting the alarm system. She couldn't remember if she had or not. We'd found out it wasn't set. She'd left the business premises unlocked. There was no sign of forced entry.
For the insurer, this just didn't add up. But they couldn't place her at the scene of the fire.
There were workers next door who'd spotted the fire in its early stages, had called the fire service. They called the policyholder, but Amanda Bryant turned up. She lived 4 miles away, and she turned up in a dressing gown, which would suggest that she wasn't in the vicinity when the fire took hold.
When Allianz were looking to settle the claim, something unexpected was thrown up.
It became apparent that the property had actually been underinsured. Had the claim been successful, Amanda Bryant would only been eligible for a third of that value, and we would have ended up paying only £50,000.
Despite their concerns, the insurers had no hard evidence and decided to settle. But then they received some news.
We received a call from the police who told us that they'd never actually stopped investigating themselves and had reached a point where they were able to call Amanda Bryant into the police station, and she confessed everything.
It turned out that Amanda had had an accomplice.
Amanda Bryant confessed that she and her son, Aaron Smith, had set the fire deliberately.
Amanda Bryant was found guilty of committing arson and fraud and sentenced to 2.5 years. Her son was sentenced to 12 months for committing arson.
This was a really good result for us, and we were really pleased with the outcome, because this was a very, very serious incident. Not only was she trying to get a financial advantage, her actions and her son's actions could have seriously injured or even caused death to an innocent person.
When making a claim, people come up with many stories, from the sublime to the ridiculous. But some people really do live in an imaginary world, as bus company First Group found out.
On the 30th of November 2011, the bus is travelling through a residential area. It's quite a tight road. There's traffic on sort of both sides, and as the bus has passed a line of cars, he's accidentally scraped one of the vehicles as he's going past.
There was another driver on the bus, and they both got out to inspect the damage.
Just far from being a serious accident, it was a very minor impact. We would expect to see some cosmetic damage to the vehicle. There was only some minor scraping to the bus, but there was a bit of damage to the car door, yeah. At that time, the partner of the car owner has come along to the scene of the accident as well, and they've exchanged details and discussed the case. The driver's then gone back to the depot, made his report of the incident, and having obtained the owner's details, we phoned up to arrange for their car to be repaired. We will try and do this within 6 hours of an accident.
During the phone call with the partner, the bus company set about confirming what had happened.
He's confirmed that the bus has driven past and struck the parked and unattended vehicle. We've asked him to just clarify the circumstances again, and once more he's confirmed that that vehicle was unattended.
Well, actually, I was outside having a cigarette and saw it happen. The car was parked, he was coming round and he clipped it, basically. There's a scrape on the wing mirror. Most of the damage is to the rear quarter panel, the rear light, rear bumper, and also the rear door's been caught with it as well.
As far as the insurer was concerned, the case was closed.
From the report that was made to us, we would just be expecting to see a claim for repairs to the vehicle, possibly some hire, but no chance really of an injury claim to arise from this circumstances, no.
Done and dusted. The incident was filed away, until a claim dropped out of the blue.
1.5 years later, we're rather surprised to receive a claim from the owner of the vehicle, and she's now alleging that she was in the car and she has sustained injuries to her lower back and is now suffering from headaches.
The claimer was obviously getting into the swing of things with her crack at attempted fraud. The bus company thought she's just got to be kidding.
We just weren't satisfied with some of the details of this claim. Firstly, there's a lengthy delay in actually reporting the claim. This is a tactic that's used by a lot of people, hoping that maybe some of the evidence is no longer as clear as it was. People's memories tend to fade after a period of time.
The claimer made quite a few gaffes on the way.
The second issue would be that the lady had reported the accident time as 10:30 to 10:45. The partner of the car owner has actually reported it at 8:45, which ties in with what the bus driver has said as well. So we've got a 2-hour difference in the times of the accident.
Not only did the claimer get in a muddle about the time of the accident, it turned out she also forgot the whereabouts of her boyfriend at the time.
She's actually said in her statement that she was waiting for her children at the time in the car. Later on, she makes another statement saying that she's waiting for her partner.
Wait a minute, what did he say to the bus company earlier?
Well, actually, I was outside having a cigarette and saw it happen.
That's what I thought.
She then says that she's had to phone him to get into the scene. Well, he's already there, which is evidenced by the CCTV. We've reviewed the CCTV, and no one gets out of that car for some time, and you know, I've sat there and actually looked through it, and you're just waiting for it to get out of the vehicle, and it doesn't happen.
This is the car that's just been hit. When the bus driver has a look to assess the damage, no one seems to be getting out of the car. Wait for it. Wait for it. Even when the bus parks up, still no one gets out of the car. The claimer was clearly lying. First Group had no option but to deny the claim.
My message to people lying about their claims is to remember that we go to great lengths to train our staff in fraud detection techniques. We are very well trained in cross-examination of evidence, and most importantly of all, we have CCTV, so remember to smile, you're on camera.
Top floor's clear.
Thames Valley Police have just raided a house of a suspected crash for cash criminal.
We just need to check you out, because certain individuals we're looking for today.
But there are residents living there who are not connected with the offence.
Our chap isn't here. The gentleman that's in the bedroom that you've just come into, he used to share that same room with our man, but he doesn't know where he is now.
Even though the suspected criminal isn't there, the officers don't stop in their search for possible evidence.
So that's done, is it?
Yeah, that's done.
However, it turned out that one of the residents may be able to help the police with their inquiries.
You are under arrest on suspicion of conspiracy to defraud, suspicion of conspiracy to destroy damaged property, and suspicion of dangerous driving.
Handcuffed, he's taken to the police station for further questioning.
On searching the house, we have found a lot of banking information, and some of that banking information is rather inconsistent with large sums being paid into bank accounts that we need to clarify where those payments are coming from as well.
The police have found evidence to suggest their suspect is at a different address. The officers don't waste a minute and are already on their way. But they don't have a warrant for the premises, so they won't be able to enter with force.
Oh, hi, it's the police. Could you let us in, please?
The police need to establish which flat may house the suspected criminal. Finally, someone answers the door to the officers.
All right, mate, can we just come and have a chat? Nothing to worry about. We're police officers.
They need to go in to confirm their suspected criminal isn't inside. Unfortunately, they didn't find their suspect at this property. But it wasn't a wasted journey. The officers do leave with some potential leads.
We believe that the male that we were looking for is a regular visitor to that address, if not a resident there. We do have some contact details for him, so that's now off to CID, and they'll be making further inquiries to try and get hold of him.